Welcome to the Seamus Evans Show. Last episode, I spoke about redirecting my tics, how to cure, how to handle my tics when it comes to Tourette's. So today, I want to talk about ADHD. It seems that ADHD diagnoses are skyrocketing here in Australia. So let's talk about, well, first of all, I want to explain. Do you know why? It's actually exploding because of social media. Social media isn't giving you ADHD, but it's spreading awareness and reducing the stigma. Seeing a lot of influencers talk about ADHD and having their neurodiversities and their recent diagnoses, then people are watching it and they're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I've got. Maybe I've got it too. And then they get diagnosed. I thought that was pretty fascinating. So I want to talk about mine. First of all, ADHD is a spectrum, right? Like it's definitely on a scale. Lower end, higher end, I would say. One end, I would say, is disabling, debilitating. You can't function in society. You can't socialize. You can't sit still. Really high end stuff. And it was typically those high end categories and cases. That's what they thought was ADHD back in the day. And so, you know how you hear about so many people complaining like, mate, back when I was younger, no one had it. Only the kids that were jumping on the roof. Why is everyone getting diagnosed? They've really just done a lot more research and a lot more understanding of this condition and have found that a lot more brains are included in that scale of attention hyperactivity disorder, attention disorder, attention hyper, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That's right. How bad is that word, disorder? Me no likey. So I want to share with you what I was like when I was younger and at school. Failed school, couldn't sit still, couldn't concentrate. I was definitely in one of those higher end categories. I distinctly remember the first time I knew that I didn't have the same attention span as everybody else. It was in grade 1, so straight out of kindy, and you're led to believe that school's exciting. You buy these books, you buy this pencil case, these fun pens, you do all the thing, the stationery, and you get the uniform. Wow, it's exciting! Everyone's making a fuss. Little do you know, you're about to enter a 12-year sentence and you're in prison. You go to school for the first day. And what I remember is being like, wow, this is so much fun. And as the week went on, or the weeks went on, the days went on, I was like, wait a second, this is not as fun as I thought. I don't want to do this. This is boring. Can I go home? And then I remember speaking to my parents and be like, hey, so can we just not go to school anymore? And they're like, no, you've got to go now. This is it. This is what you do. And I'm like, wait, for how long? Oh, for 12 years. And that was in like the first 2 weeks of year 1. I'm like, 12 years? Are you kidding me? That's double my age. Like, I've got to be in school for not only the same amount of time I've been alive, but double it. Oh, it was such a daunting feeling. And I felt betrayed. I felt so like, what? I didn't know this. I didn't sign up for it. What the hell? Yeah. But I distinctly remember grade 1. The teacher was talking about whatever the task was that we were doing, and we had blackboards back then, not whiteboards, blackboards. Blackboards had chalk, not a Nico, not a whiteboard marker. And the teacher said, get this sheet of paper and glue it into your book, because we're going to look at the page and then fill it in, whatever the task was. And I had a stick of glue, and I started pressing the glue on the sheet of paper once, twice, 3 times, and all of a sudden my mind disappeared, and I am tapping this glue on this sheet of paper like 100 times. And then I didn't realize, but the class had moved on, the teacher had moved on, maybe 7 to 10 to 15, maybe even 20 minutes had passed. And I'm stuck on this glue. lost in my own little world, right? Probably daydreaming. And the teacher got so angry. Seamus, what are you doing? I told you to glue it here and there, and you're doing this. Oh, give it here. And she got someone else in the class to come over and do this for Seamus. He can't do it. And then the little girl came over, ding, 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 ding. And she just very effectively, one piece of glue in each side, 4 dots, and then glued it on the sheet of paper. She sat down within 10 seconds. I was like, what just happened? Where am I? What are we doing? Like, I just fully was lost. And I knew that from that moment on, I'm not the same as everyone else. I knew. I was like, and then later on, I think it was then in year 2, I was with my best mate and we were looking up on the board and we were just hanging out, but he could read the sentences. And I was like, you know what that says? He's like, yeah. I couldn't read. I could not read. In grade 2, no reading. And I was like, how do you know what those words mean? And he's like, well, I know how to read. I'm like, you can read? Man. And I should have been able to read by then, but I couldn't. Anyway, that's when I knew I'm a little bit special. My cheese fell off of my cracker. Anyway, struggled academically through school. Because of that, I embodied the class clown role. Because people were laughing at me for being dumb, I thought, why don't I control the narrative, make them laugh, crack the joke, and then they can laugh with me. So because I can't sit here and concentrate, I'll come up with a funny joke. They're going to laugh at me anyway. Why don't I come up with a funny little quip, and then they can laugh with me? And then I'm not getting laughed at. Instead, I'm getting laughed with. And I feel like there's a sense of approval. I'm assuming that's what it was. But that's the kind of narrative and the journey that I embodied over the next 12 years, being in a prison sentence. I also remember thinking very clearly, this is difficult. For me to sit still and try and focus and concentrate and actually do the task, answer this question, which requires a lot of brain power, or complete this mathematical sum. I remember it being hard in my brain and it requiring a lot of brain power. And I remember weighing up the situation of going, if I don't do this, well, what's the result? I'll get a detention. The teacher will yell at me. I'll get sent outside or be given homework that I won't do anyway. Well, all of those are way easier than what I'm doing now. So I'll take that option. And instead of doing the work, I decided to not do the work, sit back, daydream, talk to my friends, look out the window, whatever it was. I didn't care, because the ramification, the discipline was easier than the actual work. For me, it was way harder to do the work than it was to be disciplined. Being yelled at was very easy for me. I grew up in a house where it was very common for mum and dad to yell. It was also smacking was around, not abuse. When I was growing up, it was not abuse. Smacking was normal. They'd tell you not to do something, you did it, you got a smack. They say, if I count to 3 and you're still doing that, you get a smack. They count to 3, I got a smack. It was just normal. So someone raising their voice didn't scare me. Being given detention didn't matter. Being given homework that I didn't do anyway didn't matter. I will deal with that tomorrow. And then, I'd get into trouble and I'd get sent outside. Who cares? I distinctly remember once a teacher goes, Seamus, get out, go chase the pigeons. So guess what I did? I chased those pigeons all over the quadrangle, and all of the classes were watching me. From one end to the other of the quadrangle, chasing those pigeons like a beagle. I also learned a very valuable skill. See, because if you were sent outside, if a teacher walked past you, they'd say, why are you outside? And if you said, oh, so-and-so sent me outside, you'd get into trouble. So to avoid getting into trouble again, I found out a very special tactic, a trick, a technique. If you hold a sheet of paper and you walk really quickly with intent, like you're on a mission and going somewhere doing something, You never get questioned. So when I was sent out, I would get a sheet of paper and I'd walk around the whole school looking into classrooms and pretend I'm looking for someone. And I would go the whole 50-minute period walking. So to run through a few different, before I explain how I essentially cured my inability to focus and have an attention span capable of sitting down for hours and hours and hours to do work that I needed to do, I will explain a little bit more about the symptoms of ADHD. And a lot of the stuff that I've spoken in, a lot of the podcast episodes that I've recorded previously will have a lot of these. But if you're brand new to the channel, welcome. It's great to have you. ADHD, attention hyperactivity. Is that right? Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Inability to focus. See, when information hits your brain at point A, it uses a path to travel to get to point B. And at point B is where the brain absorbs the information. The path it takes, the path it uses to travel, to take information from point A to point B, is slow. It's like a traffic jam. Whereas everybody else's brain is normal speed, going 60 kilometers an hour or 100 on a highway. Ours, traffic jam. So it's slow, which means during the travel time, we get distracted because it's taking a long time. Our brain goes somewhere else because the information hasn't hit yet. That's an easy way to sum up a very, very complex neurological condition. A lot of ADHD symptoms are also the inability to regulate your emotions. So it's called emotional dysregulation, which means if I'm angry, sad, or happy, I don't know when and where to put the happy emotion in, or the sad emotion, or the angry emotion. It's just a buildup, and they get let out in the different areas. It's not ordered. And because of this, I'll have big highs and big lows within the space of 20 minutes. Like if I get a big rush of excitement, I don't know what feeling to feel. Like my body reacts and my brain reacts and I get the dopamine, but I don't know how to put it in the right category. And so it's just like an overwhelming amount of emotion. And then all of a sudden there's a giant crash. Anyway, there's also hyperactivity and hypo. And I spoke about this in one of the previous episodes, but hyperactive is up and then hypo is down. So hyperactive is outward, can't sit still, climbing up walls, lots and lots of energy. Hypo is inward. So actually the opposite effect, and having a down effect. Instead of being up and hyperactive, you're down. So you're feeling low. A lot of it is inward as well. So you can't get off the couch. You just have no energy. Like it's a complete opposite. Whatever goes up must come down. And so that's another one. Things that can make your ADHD way worse is screens. If you're like, especially social media, you can just get pulled in with the dopamine release and just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and feel great. But it actually depletes your energy. It depletes your ability to concentrate. It depletes your ability to focus and sit still. And it just makes it 10 times worse. Makes you very emotional as well. Like, as in, I don't mean sad. I mean like moody. You can be very, very moody with ADHD. So some of the medications that work are Vivance and Ritalin, Dexies. I don't like them. I don't use any meds. I used to. I don't anymore. And if you go along my YouTube channel, I talk a lot about the reasons why and my experimentation. I used meds for about 6 months, and it just wasn't right for me, so I stopped. So when I got my first job on television, I was a host for Toasted TV. Because I failed school, I could barely read or write properly. And I remember the boss pulling me aside after about 6 months into the job. My first boss, he wasn't there for long. He hired me and then he got given another job. So he kind of he checked out and he left. So he didn't really care about the scripts I was putting forward. But the second boss, who had a real passion for television and really created a bit of a bond with me, and him and I were buds and he was a bit of a mentor. He sat me down and said, Seamus, these scripts that you're putting forward, these scripts that you're writing are not good enough. This is not acceptable. This is very subpar. You're not in high school anymore. This is a real life job. You're employed, and this is not up to scratch. This is not up to standard. I know we're the only ones reading it, but you can't put this stuff forward. And it was a real eye-opening of like, hey man, on-air talent will only get you so far. Talent will only get you so far. You need to be able to back it up. And in school, like in drama and film and even HPE, like prac, I would always do well in, but theory was always a struggle for me, because I couldn't focus, couldn't read or write properly. So because he was like, this isn't good enough. And my dream, my goal was to be a television presenter. I wanted to be a great broadcaster. I wanted to have my own television show, my own production company. I wanted to be like, Jimmy Fallon. That was my goal. That was my dream. That was it. And I was like, well, if I can't read or write properly, then I won't be able to be Jimmy Fallon. So, and I took this job very serious. It was the only thing in my life that I took really seriously. I didn't care for school. I didn't take that serious. I didn't take any other hobby of mine. But once I got this television job, I was disciplined. I was in bed early. I was up early. I was so disciplined, organized the night before. And this was what was holding me back: the inability to write and string a sentence together and use correct grammar. And in my keynote, Superpower, I talk about that. All of my friends were tradesmen, and they had to have their tools sharp. They had to have good quality tools and maintain them. And my tools were words, so I had to sharpen them. I had to know how to use the English language to my advantage to tell a story. So from that moment on, I took it upon myself to learn and get better, sharpen that skill, sharpen that sword, and, learn how to read properly, learn how to write. So I started reading. I remember like, how do I get better at English? How do I get better at writing? And the overwhelming evidence was just read more, read things you like, and also write. So I did. I forced myself to read. I'd get books. I got so many different books, and I hated reading because the moment I read a sentence, I'd get to the end of the sentence and be like, I did not understand a word. And I'd read that sentence 10, 15, sometimes 20 times, and it just wouldn't sink in. But every time I read a word, in the back of my mind, this is helping you in your journey become the next Jimmy Fallon. This is helping you become a better broadcaster. This is helping you become a better TV presenter. So I was diligent. I was disciplined. I forced myself through that pain. That mental barrier I spoke about in school, where it was really hard for me. And in fact, getting a detention or getting into trouble was easier than this mental learning barrier. I had a carrot that was dangling over me. And during that difficult time of forcing my brain to just sit there and keep reading it, the carrot was success. If I read this sentence, I'll become one step closer to being successful. That's how I thought. Weeks went on, months went on, years went on, and I would also keep a diary, or I'd keep a journal like daily. I would also watch. I love movies. I love watching movies, and I would watch a movie and then write about it as pretending it was going to be published. It never was, and it wasn't to be published. It was just so I could get better at it. I was like, well, I need to know how to write and talk and read, so I'll watch a movie because I like it, and then I'll write about it. So I kept giving myself little tasks like this. And also I wanted to get better at descriptive writing and telling a story and short stories and creative writing. So there was a lady who, unfortunately, she passed away recently, but she was such a lovely lady who used to work for us at Channel 10. And I would go to her and I'd say, hey, listen, I really want to get better. I'm really struggling. She was a brilliant writer. Can I write some stuff for you? And you teach me how to do it better. And she was like, yes, of course. So for about 6 months on a weekly basis, her and I would sit down weekly. She'd give me a task. I'd do it. I'd give it to her. She'd write it, read it, edit it, give me feedback, and I'd do it again. Like this happened over and over. And it was really interesting because after I actually put some effort in, I remember writing a story about wolves. It was a creative story about, I think it was like a baby wolf getting separated from its mother in the Alaska, wherever. And I just wanted to be as descriptive as possible and tell a fun story and try and capture emotion in this wolf and the fear and the whatever. And I just really went to town with description. And I will never forget it. I sent her the story. She came back and she was like, Seamus. And this was in front of everyone. And at the time, my co-host and my boss and the production coordinator, they'd always laugh at me for misspelling stuff. They'd always laugh at me and tease me and joke about how bad I was at writing and reading. And even though, sure, it was funny, this was so great to prove to them that I'm not an idiot. So the lady who was proofreading my stuff and kind of mentoring me and tutoring me, she said, Seamus, you're a brilliant writer. You are actually incredible. You know how to tell a story and paint a picture. I was like a little puppy just receiving cuddles and pats behind the ear. Like, oh man, it felt so good because she said it in front of everyone. And my co-host, who really bragged about being a word nerd and being really good at English, and would always correct me if there was a grammar error, like a comma in the wrong spot or a full stop. Blah, always, this is meant to be a comma there. This is meant to be a full stop there. It's meant to be blah. And oh man, it was annoying. Anyway. And she said it in front of everyone. Oh, it was like hitting a home run in baseball at a home game and the whole stadium erupting. It was so good because I finally felt recognized that I wasn't dumb. Like, yes, I was not educated, but I wasn't an idiot. I wasn't dumb. I just didn't learn grammar and English. That didn't make me dumb. It just made me illiterate. And I felt there was a difference. There was a difference between dumb and being illiterate. Because today I am literate. Far better than what I was. I'm not perfect, and I don't think anyone is. But enough to get by. I'm a professional speaker. I've written articles that have been published in newspapers, in magazines, you name it. So I am a published author. I am a broadcaster. It's fair to say that I am literate and I still have the same brain. I just learnt a skill. And it was such a great feeling. I'm like, yes, I told you, world, I'm not dumb. So let me tell you the formula that I used to teach myself how to focus and concentrate for long periods of time. When I explain it, you're going to kick yourself. Oh, I can do that. Yeah, it's actually really easy. First step is sit down and read or concentrate for 2 minutes. Press a timer. 2 minutes. Do not take your eyes off the screen. Do not stop reading. Do not stop writing. Do not come up for air until you hear that timer. Once you hear that timer, you can get up. You can walk around. You can do that for 10 minutes. Go for it. Then the next time you sit down, you're going to do it for 3 minutes. And then when that alarm goes off, you're going to get up. You're going to walk around. You're going to do whatever you want for 7 minutes. Then when you sit down again, you're going to press it for 5 minutes. This process will go on for a few months because it gets difficult, it gets easy, you got stuff to do, you don't get to do things, you get distracted, whatever. But every single time you need to do work, you press a timer and you are bloody disciplined. You do not move. You do not get up. You do not take your eyes off the screen or you do not stop writing. Every single time you catch your brain disappearing, you catch yourself getting distracted, you instantly pull back and keep forcing yourself. You must take a forceful hand, a strong hand, and have a really no bullshit approach. Sorry for my language, but you do not give yourself any leeway until that alarm goes. You keep doing. I did this. And then it went to half an hour. Then it went to 40 minutes. Then it went to 50 minutes. And every hour, I would get up for 10. So I would sit down for 50 minutes at a time and I would read for 50 minutes straight. I would write for 50 minutes straight. Every time I looked away or got a bang, force myself, get back in there. Give myself a metaphorical slap around the head. Whatever it was, I had to be really disciplined and really quite strict. This is what worked for me, being strict. Do not give yourself any leeway. 50 minutes and then 10-minute break. Then I was able, after doing that, it gets really difficult, okay? If you're sitting there for 50 minutes and your brain is like, oi, I've got to come up for air. And you're like, no, keep going. Something happens and you unlock this hyper focus. It's almost like survival mode. It's like if you're running a marathon, if you're running for long distances, it gets hard and you want to stop and keep walking. But if you keep forcing yourself to keep running and you never let yourself walk, you have someone next to you screaming at you, yelling at you, you're not allowed to walk, keep going. Something kicks in and you're able to last a very long time. So you get given another wind, another wall breaks down and you get given a new lease on this physical ability and your capability skyrockets. And it's just unlocking a new code or it's unlocking a new level in a game. But you must push past that barrier. You must push past that wall. See, you are actually in control. So when your brain is getting information from point A to point B, remember it's slow and we get distracted. You must get better at catching you in the distraction. You must get better at catching your brain when it gets distracted and slapping it across the face to keep concentrating. That falls on you and that falls on trial and error and consistency. If you go, this is too hard, I can't do it, it will never happen. And this will be months at a time. Months. And what really helps is if you have that carrot dangling in front of you. So whatever your goal is, just say you want to be a professional soccer player, a professional football player. So you need to learn the rules of the game. You need to learn the history of the game. You need to study some of the greatest players. Then get their autobiography and read them. Get to know what makes them champions and how can you mimic that. Now, when you're reading that book, your brain will get distracted. Okay. Even though it's your interest, you'll still get distracted. But every time you get distracted, you're further away from being a professional soccer player. If you have that mentality, then you will get through that book faster than you realize. Because if you don't do it, if you don't read, if you don't write, if you don't learn, your steps further away from your goal than where you are today. And with that extreme thinking, which is actually appropriate for people with ADHD because they're impulsive and have quite extreme, like it's either that or nothing. Right. I mean, like this is where impulsive buying is a problem because they'll be like, I need a car. Okay, I'm going to get a loan that's far outside of my capability and buy the brand new best car I can get. No. Just buy a secondhand one. You need a car to get from point A to point B. Don't relax on the big purchase. But people with ADHD will make that big purchase because it's actually a really common trait. Impulsive purchasing, and then they never use it. Like, do you know how many times I've bought an item to align with a hobby and I never continue that hobby? Doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, this is the longest time I've ever stayed committed to a hobby, ever. Boxing was very close. I did boxing for a long time, probably in total a year, but spread out over a couple. But consistently, I've done Jiu-Jitsu now for 6 months. That's the longest I've ever been consistent. You must have this all or nothing mentality when it comes to forcing yourself to concentrate and forcing yourself to focus. You must. Otherwise, you will give up. Otherwise, it's too easy to quit. So you must have really extreme ramifications psychologically if you stop focusing. And I learned once you push past a few little pain barriers, you actually can focus and disappear at the same time. I recorded an audiobook for a book that an author wrote about a kid with Tourette's, and they reached out to me and said, can you please, it's called The Right Way to Rock by Nat Amor. And I had to and I thought, yeah, this is going to be great. I'm going to be the voice of a book. This is amazing because I listen to a lot of audiobooks and I'm like, this is so cool. Sounds exciting, but once you're past your first 10 minutes of reading the first 2 pages, you realize, oh, I don't leave for 6 hours and I just sit in a room with a microphone and I just read for 6 hours straight. That is really tough. But what I found, like, if it was up to me and it was just up to my free leisure reading, oh man, I'm not going past half an hour. Like that's pushing it. But because I didn't have a choice and I was locked in a room, my phone was turned off and it was perfect lighting, microphone, headphones in, and all I could hear was my voice as I read each word. And I put in some emphasis and how I delivered the message. I even put in voices, whatever it was, right? I lasted like 6 hours at a time. It was very draining, but what I learned is although I was able to concentrate and focus, I was also able to escape. Like, it's like, you know how you talk about apparently sharks, they don't stop swimming when they sleep. They just continue because half of their brain turns off while the other one sleeps, and then the other one wakes up and the other part falls back asleep. It's kind of like that. When you're able to focus and disappear into a hyper-focused world, it's almost like you escape into your daydreaming, into your fairyland focus. It's the weirdest thing, but you are capable of it. You just have to push past that barrier. Just like when you're running a marathon and you want to give up, or you're running long distances and your body is like, I'm ready to give up now. If you actually keep pushing past, you push past that pain barrier and you unlock another level. When you force yourself to focus, it's actually the same thing. So, to sum it up, force yourself with extreme ramifications if you don't focus for short amounts of time with a big reward. But do that consistently. So if you are just starting a new job for the first time of your life and you've never sat down for 8 hours straight, you force yourself to focus in front of the computer for 5 minutes and give yourself a 10-minute break. Then another 5 minutes. And then you give yourself a 7-minute break. Then you go for a 7-minute focus and then a 5-minute break. Then you go for a 10-minute focus with a 5-minute break. Then a 15-minute, then a 30-minute, then a 40-minute. Get to the point where you can get to an hour or 50 minutes and then a 10-minute break. That's the perfect ratio. And the 10 minutes could be a quick toilet break, could be a coffee break, could be a bite to eat, maybe talking to someone at a table near you, whatever. But the aim is 50 minutes with a 10-minute break. You can get to that quicker than you realize. Just make sure you have that little carrot. If you don't read this next sentence, if you don't write this next sentence, if you don't complete that next task, well, then you're not going to reach your goal of being successful in whatever stage it is that you want to be. Now, that's not the truth, but you must think that way. You must think that way in order to unlock the ability to force yourself to focus. That's what worked for me. It's easier if you're focusing on an area of your interest. If you're interested in a topic and you read about it, you won't put the book down. It's a lot easier to catch yourself from being distracted and read the next sentence because it's enjoyable. If it's not, that's a hard time, man. Just really make sure you focus on unlocking that new code, unlocking that new level, unlocking that new ability to push past those pain barriers so you can actually shift your brain into gear. It'll take some time. So just don't be hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. The trick is to never give up and to keep trying, to keep doing it over and over and over. If this has worked for you, or if you have a new technique, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Write in your comment how you, living with ADHD, have taught yourself how to focus, have taught yourself how to hyper-focus, and have taught yourself how to have an amazing attention span. Or even share with us how you got through school living with ADHD. Did you struggle or did you succeed? Because if you look at a lot of the world leaders, man, they're neurodiverse. If you look at a lot of entrepreneurs, businessmen, CEOs, they've all got ADHD. It's high risk, high reward, high dopamine seeking, impulsive, risk-taking behavior. Plus, they teach themselves how to focus when they need to. Use it to your advantage. You are so capable. You can do it. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned for the next episode. This has been The Seamus Show. Have a great day.